I'm especially excited about this module because I'm recording this after the original course was created. And I'm doing this for a very specific reason. You know, when Bruce and Lynn and I originally put this course together, we could see a trend unfolding in our lives, a trend unfolding in the world in terms of the role that technology is playing in our lives, more specifically, the role that we are allowing technology to play in our lives and in our bodies. Well, since that recording, the original recording was made, that trend has not only continued, it has accelerated, and I think probably faster than even the people building the technology believed would be possible. Because the trends that we saw are now being embraced in a big way on a global scale, and in some cases in a really positive way, and in some cases what are opening the door to what I feel and what I've described in this course is a slippery slope in terms of how much of ourselves we are choosing to give away to the technology. And as I mentioned in the earlier modules, the consequence of relinquishing our biology to technology, of giving away the uniqueness of our organs and our neurons and our cells and our blood and our tissue to computer chips and wires and chemicals in our bodies, is that once our natural biology is replaced with artificial technology, our bodies begin to atrophy in terms of these uniquely human capacities. The reason is simple, and we've all heard this, is use it or lose it. When we stop using the neurons in the way that they are designed to be used, when we stop using our cells in the way that they're designed to be used, because the technology has replaced them in our bodies, then there is a place where our body begins to sense that that capacity is no longer needed. It begins to atrophy in our lifetimes. And when we then create the next generation, that skill or that uniqueness that was a cherished part of our humanness in this generation becomes a remnant, an idea of something that's no longer used. And I've given you examples of that in the course, but it's happening so fast right now. And it's highlighting a conversation that has happened in scientific communities since science originated over 300 years ago. And I witnessed this firsthand when I was working as a scientist in the corporations, in the earth sciences, in the computer sciences, and the life sciences. And the conversation goes like this. There are two schools of thought. There is one school of thought where scientists have said to me, Greg, because we had the wisdom and the knowledge to develop these technologies, that gives us permission to implement them and to use them in our lives. In other words, just because we can, it means that we should. And there's another school of thought, you know where this is going, another school of thought that says, wait a minute, not so fast. Just because we have the ability to do these things doesn't necessarily mean that we should implement them full scale in our everyday lives. You know, the analogy that often comes to mind with this conversation is certainly the speedometer on an automobile. Just because that speedometer may go to 120 miles per hour in the Western world, we're talking about miles per hour, mph, that doesn't mean necessarily that we go out and drive our car at 120 miles an hour every time we get on the highway. I know some people may feel differently about that, but this is a beautiful analogy. Just because it's possible, it doesn't necessarily mean that we do it every time we get into that car. So this is a conversation that's been going on for a very long time, but it now is a conversation that's being highlighted to an even greater degree because of the speed with which, number one, the technology is developing, number two, the speed with which it's being embraced. And a lot of the reason for the rapid acceptance of the technology is because of media, mainstream media, has made this technology very attractive. It's made it very sexy. It's made it look very hip to embrace these technologies in our lives, to embrace enhanced prosthetics that give us the ability to see things differently and to function differently in our lives. But it's gone so far as to even suggest that we need the technology to be successful in life and that we need the technology to be healthy in our bodies. All of this is now coming to a focus. And the reason it's coming to a focus is because you and I are in the middle of a revolution. It's not a revolution that's going to happen 10 years from now. It's not a revolution that is a philosophical concept only discussed in academic circles. It is happening right this minute. It's happening in your life. It's happening in my life. We're in it. The only way out of it is to go through it. And the goal is to go through this revolution in the healthiest way possible. That's why Bruce and Lynn and I are offering this content. And this is what I want to talk to you about right now. The revolution I'm talking about is not your typical everyday revolution. It's not a social revolution per se, although social changes are being implemented as a result of this revolution. It's not a political revolution, although politics are reflecting this revolution. It's a revolution of industry. You and I literally are living what is now being called the fourth industrial revolution. Now, when people hear this, sometimes they think, well, what's it have to do with me? You know, when you think about industry, you think about making things and putting people to work and employment and stocks and things like that. And those are all part of it. But it goes far, far beyond that. We are in the middle of the fourth industrial revolution, and that brings to mind the question, what were the first three? Well, let me just highlight these for you very, very quickly. The first industrial revolution is said to have been the revolution that occurred when the power of running water and of steam, heating that water to create steam, to drive machines and automate processes unfolded. So this was the first industrial revolution. It changed our world. It made possible things like cotton mills and steam engines for travel and rail. Automobiles were originally driven on steam engines as well. Some people don't know that. It changed the way that we lived our lives, and it allowed automation and mass production of textiles and of machine parts and things like that. Second industrial revolution was also about automation, but this is when electrical power replaced the steam and the water. Most of us probably remember this happening early in our lives. The third industrial revolution we definitely remember because it was automation based upon information technology. And this is the age that we have been living in recent years up until just the last couple of years. The fourth industrial revolution is a little bit different kind of a revolution. It's really interesting because it's less about the innovation of a new technology and more about the fusion of existing technologies that is now blurring the line between the very fundamental essence of our lives and the way that we think of ourselves in the world. This technology is blurring the line between physical reality, digital reality, and our bodies, human biology. Wow, what a powerful revolution. I want to talk to you about the philosophies that are leading this revolution because there are three fundamental philosophies that are converging. One of them we talked about in the previous modules in this course. That is transhumanism. I'm going to elaborate upon transhumanism just a little bit in just a moment so that we can lay the foundation for the next two, because there is a new technology now, relatively new, that is called blockchain technology that is revolutionizing the way that we use the digital world. And these two technologies now being merged together, blockchain technology has made possible a new digital reality that is called the Metaverse. The Metaverse. It is the blending of these technologies that now is at our doorstep. And we are on the threshold of making the choices that are forever going to change the way that we think and live our everyday lives. We're also at this threshold. We've got to choose how much of this technology do we want to embrace in our lives? How much of this technology do we want in our everyday lives, the lives of our children? I think you're going to see what I mean by that in just a moment. Let me just pick up a little bit where we left off earlier in the course on transhumanism, because we had some questions that came up around this as to whether or not this, this is hidden, or if it's, some secret. It's not. This is the whole point. The industries, the corporations, the governments, the technologies that are really pushing the agenda for transhumanism, and that's just what it is. It is a transhumanist agenda, are proud of what they're doing because they believe it is the only solution to the problems that we face in our lives today. Problems in society, problems of war, problems of disease. So I'm not saying that it's good, bad, right, or wrong. I'm saying it's a perspective, and if you don't know that other perspectives are available, this can look appealing. So it's happening in plain sight. So as I mentioned before, the transhumanism, it is the movement to replace us, our neurons and blood and cells, and even our intelligence with wires and chips and chemicals and artificial intelligence. It's based upon the thinking that we are flawed as a life form, that carbon-based life by its very nature is flawed, that we are powerless victims of our external environment, and that to be successful in life and to be healthy in our bodies, we need to adopt this technology. And you all know exactly what I'm talking about. You're seeing it in the ads, you're seeing it in the media, you're seeing it in the policies that are being embraced all the way from the United Nations down into your local governments. The UN is perpetuating these policies on a global basis, so this isn't just a localized phenomenon. So we're seeing this, and as I mentioned, the consequences when we replace our natural biology with artificial technology, our uniquely human qualities, they begin to atrophy. And people ask me, Greg, can you elaborate what you mean by that? You bet I can. I'm going to do it briefly right here. When we begin to replace our brain function with computer chips, we lose neural functions, we lose cognitive skills, we lose our social skills. Our children lose social skills in terms of interacting with other kids to solve everyday problems and to learn to communicate clearly and to manage their emotions. All of this now is being done through technology, so you lose the human component. You lose the feeling component. It's very easy to criticize someone anonymously on a text. I'm using my thumbs. By writing a text or to make an anonymous post on social media, because you're not face to face with that person. You're not feeling the impact that it has. You're not empathing with them. And these are the things that we lose. We lose the ability to mature in emotional growth, and we lose the ability for empathy and compassion. A computer chip cannot demonstrate empathy and compassion because there's a component of us that scientists are struggling with that cannot be accounted for in a digital representation of us. There's something about us. It's our consciousness, it's our soul, it's our spirit that cannot be contained upon a computer chip, and that is the missing piece in the transhuman agenda. But if you don't know that, you may be attracted to that transhuman agenda, as many of our young children are. So quickly, the three phases, and I'm going to do this because the third phase is now taking off at lightning speed where it used to be a futuristic idea. So first phase, just a quick summary of transhumanism, is augmented biology. We're already doing this. And, it can be pretty cool where you augment your biology, maybe contact lenses that can see infrared or can see night vision or can see, other digital realities. Prosthetics, and we all, artificial hips, artificial limbs can be a blessing to someone who has lost the function of their bodies. I'm not criticizing these. I'm just identifying this. This is phase one of the transhumanist movement. Augmented biology. We now have the ability to 3D print entire organs. The heart organ was one of the first. Kidneys, we can now 3D print. Uh, Human tissue. This is a godsend for severe burns. You can 3D print skin and ears and nose tissue rather than grafting it from another part of the body. So we're already doing phase one of the transhuman agenda. Phase two is where it starts getting a little sticky, because this is replacing our physical body with a synthetic body. This is the idea that the organs and the tissues and the bones are going to wear out and that we have no control over that, which is absolutely not true. And they do not have to deteriorate the way we have been conditioned to believe. They may, if we do nothing to intervene through the kinds of things that I've shared in my portion of this course, through the self-regulatory opportunities that we have to regenerate cells, to regenerate tissues, to awaken stem cells, regenerate and awaken longevity enzymes in the body and stimulate powerful immune response. If we don't do those things, yes, the deterioration is not only possible, it's likely, because we've seen it for hundreds of years. But now the idea that we can create robots, they used to look like robots. They used to look very mechanical, and as you saw in this course, they're starting to look much more human. And when robots look this good, you know they're being used for a lot of things beyond simply cleaning a house and grocery shopping. They're performing very human functions in everyday life, and that's the point. That phase two is that ultimately we replace our entire bodies through these artificial mechanisms. We keep the brain and we keep the consciousness in phase two, but this is leading to phase three. Phase three is where I'm really going to spend some time here. This is digital immortality. The ultimate goal of transhumanism is to live forever. The thinking is that we are flawed as a species and that our bodies are designed to deteriorate over time so that technology can save us. And the thinking is that consciousness is nothing more than a collection of ones and zeros, digital imprints that can be captured and stored on a computer chip, just like you store a program from your word processor on a computer chip. This is the thinking in this transhuman movement. And that thinking, this is where it gets really, really interesting. That thinking now is leading us, it's paving the way for this phase three and what now is being called a digital immortality. And I'm going to share with you how we've gotten to this place. First of all, there's a relatively new technology that's called blockchain technology. Now, you're probably hearing this in terms of finances, things like Bitcoin, which many people still believe is a stock. Nothing could be further than the truth. Bitcoin is a revolution in global finance. It is made possible because of blockchain technology. So what is blockchain technology? Let's define this very quickly. It is a decentralized, distributed technology of transactions recorded on blocks that are reflected in many, 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 many nodes, computer nodes distributed throughout the planet, rather than on one centralized machine in a bank or at the Federal Reserve or something like that. All right, so it is decentralized. You move away from the control of a centralized authority, and it has unprecedented transparency and security. Now, is it 100% secure? There's a whole conversation we could have. Anything on a computer can always be hacked in some way. The odds of something being hacked diminish when you begin using blockchain technology. But the ultimate value is the transparency, because in the blockchain is an immutable record of all the transactions that have occurred up until the point that you have that block. This is the inherent value of the blockchain. The inherent value is that for the first time we have a way to transact records and information that cannot be falsified. You don't have to rely on the trust of another person that has a tremendous amount of power. It's all done through an algorithm that is a really sophisticated algorithm and gives unprecedented security, transparency, and access peer-to-peer. This is a network that is maintained by you and me, peer-to-peer. So that means when it comes to finances, for example, that our money cannot be used as leverage against us, the way that the US dollar is being used, for example, as leverage against nations that may not adopt our policies. So we sanction those nations. That's called the weaponization of money. You can't do that with blockchain technology. The blockchain technology allows unprecedented access and control of an individual's finances in a way that we have never had, on a scale that we've never had in 5,000 years of recorded human history. A lot of very, very good things happening around that. But this is what blockchain technology is. All right? The Bitcoin and the finances are only one application. So the blockchain technology is allowing for decentralized business, this on an unprecedented level. So this technology is being adopted. The adoption rate is just skyrocketing. PayPal, Visa, banks are using this. Entire nations now are adopting this blockchain technology in business for business contracts and decentralized kinds of things. And it has made possible what we now know as Bitcoin technology, which is a technological solution to a flawed system of finances that is hurting the world. It's causing the disparity, it's causing the poverty, it's causing wars, and the blockchain technology is offering a solution to that. I'm going to do an entire program separate, but I want you to know, separate from this, but I want you to know why the blockchain is so powerful. Now, this is where the transhuman element comes in. The blockchain technology, the same technology that's being used to decentralize and distribute business and finance and economy and contracts, it's also paving the way to a new reality that looks like the Matrix. If you saw the movie The Matrix, where people live in one world, but their experience and their transactions are happening in another digital world that they project themselves into. That is no longer science fiction. That is exactly what's happening right now. And this new Matrix-like reality is being made to look very hot, very hip, very sexy in mainstream media and marketing, slick marketing. It's called, it is actually called a virtual reality. You will know this as what's called the Metaverse. What is the Metaverse? The Metaverse is a digital reality where all of the things that we do in everyday life, goods, services, money, and people exist as digital avatars that have been projected into the metaverse, and the business transactions, they're not happening in a boardroom with humans talking to humans. They're happening in a digitized boardroom with avatars that are interacting. Entire human relationships, intimate human relationships, are now being experienced through this reality. Young people are being taught that this is the cool reality. I'll give you an example in just a moment. But this is the cool reality where they want to spend their time and where they want to learn. This is happening so fast. And unless there is regulation and someone puts the brakes on this, we are moving very quickly into a digital world that people like Elon Musk have cautioned about. You know, Elon Musk he's a brilliant man. I'm not saying I agree with everything he does. He is brilliant. We have to acknowledge that. He's very wealthy. He's very powerful. He's a visionary. He's an engineer. He's a scientist. And I've seen interviews with Elon Musk where he's in a really interesting position, because as the head of his companies, he has to say to his company, move as far forward as quickly as you can to develop these technologies, because we've got to stay competitive with other countries who are trying to do the same thing and other companies that are trying to do the same thing. So he's saying that on the one hand. On the other hand, he is pleading with government regulators to please reel in the technology, to regulate the technology, especially the artificial intelligence, because of where it's going, how fast it's growing, and how fast it's being adopted. So the artificial intelligence can be good for some things. The artificial intelligence cannot replace human empathy, human sympathy, human emotion, human compassion. And when we begin to wean those uniquely human attributes out of our society, we become a very different society. Personally, it's not a society I am drawn to be in. I think our learning comes from our experiences of emotion and learning to empathize and sympathize with another human's suffering and to support them and they support us as we go through our experiences where we grow and we learn to manage the power of human emotion that so few other life forms, if any, have to the degree that we have. If you believe the ancient and the indigenous and our most cherished spiritual traditions, this is why we're here. We're here to learn and to master this unique power of human emotion and to self-regulate that emotion. If we wean the emotion out of our existence through technology and transhumanism, we are shorting ourselves of the opportunity, stealing from ourselves the opportunity for some of the greatest mastery in the history of humankind. So this is what's happening. All of these things are happening in this metaverse. So the metaverse right now, it's all about living everyday life inside of what is called an immersive virtual reality. So right now, the first place where this comes up is in games, and we've all seen this, where there you put on the goggles and you are in a reality that for all intents and purposes you cannot distinguish from what's called the base reality or real life. You are in it. You're not just watching it. You're immersed in it. It's called an immersive reality. So this is one of the first places that we've seen this technology, but it moves so quickly. Now, metaverse real estate. Young people are making hundreds and millions of dollars selling and buying and reselling digital real estate. So in other words, in the metaverse, there are coordinates that are unique to a place in the metaverse, and those coordinates will never be duplicated again. It's kind of like a square block on the island of Manhattan, or in the city of Manhattan in New York. Once someone owns those digital coordinates, it would be like owning the land in Manhattan. Other people come along and now they're building entire realities. They're building buildings and shops and businesses up on that digital real estate, so they've got to either buy or lease that real estate. And these transactions are happening so quickly, millionaires and billionaires are being made faster than we've ever seen before in the real estate world. Business and finance. As I said, this is entire business transactions are now happening inside this metaverse world, not in our everyday lives where you go down to the bank. It's all happening between avatars. So businessmen and businesswomen create avatars representing themselves. They project themselves into this digital reality and they transact whatever it is that the transaction is, whether it's a merging of a company or the buying of a stock or the selling of a stock, the building of a shopping mall, whatever it is, this is happening. But it's even gone beyond that. Now there are communities and societies that are finding that intimate human relationships are more attractive in the metaverse because they're less messy. You don't have to deal with good days and bad days. You don't have to deal with the emotional obstacles that come from true, intimate human interactions. So they're opting for these relationships to fulfill a need, but they're lacking the ability to grow and evolve the way that we would through normal human interactions. And by the way, the biology is part of this. The mirror neurons that reflect one another and the subtle cues that come from eye movements and from our mouth and our body gestures, all of those things are lost in the metaverse. Now, we may not know how great of a role those things play in our lives. We want to know before we lose it. And I'm not saying don't do these things. I'm saying that we are on the precipice of losing elements, our most cherished elements of our humanness. And before we give those things away, I think we need to know what it is that we're giving away. And the irony is, once we understand the deep truth of our extraordinary potential, the metaverse, while it can serve us, we no longer are attracted to it to replace our everyday lives. It can serve us rather than enslave us. And that is precisely where this is going. It is the enslavement of a young generation because they are losing their ability to function in the everyday world. Let me give an example, and I'm going to automate this in just a moment. Because you and I know of the world before all of this happened, but there are young people who are being born into this world. This is all they know, if you can imagine that. So can you imagine being a young person? You wake up in the morning, you have your breakfast, and then you put your helmet on like this young girl is about to do. Watch what happens when she puts that helmet on. She places the helmet on her head, and a new world opens up to her. And look at that world. Look at the intensity of the colors and the extraordinarily amazing things that this child is experiencing in this world. Once you're in this world, who wants to go outside and play with your friends and get into fights and do all the things that kids do that help with their growth and development when you can escape into this world? And that's the whole point. This digital world, it may serve us as a place to explore our reality, or it may imprison us as a place where we escape in one generation, and then pretty soon the next generation, this is all that they know. So I just want to be really clear on where I am with this. We're at this pivotal point that scientists have been with technology since science emerged over 300 years ago. Just because we can, does that mean that we should? And this is a question that we've got to answer for ourselves, and we've got to answer it right now. There's an emerging philosophy that is developing among scientists in the scientific community regarding us and our relationship to technology. And I've alluded to it in this program, and I want to elaborate on it just a little bit more. And the technology simply says that consciousness informs itself through its creations. Now think about that. Consciousness informs itself through its creations. We are consciousness. Is it possible that we are telling ourselves something about ourselves in here through the technology that we develop out there? And if so, what would that be? And I'm just going to invite you to think about this a little bit. It means that the things that we do that we believe are diversions, so our books, the books we write, the books I write, the art, the music, the sculpture, the dance, all of those things, as much as they entertain us and as much as they divert us from the troubles of the everyday world, is it possible that they're also reminding us something about ourselves? And if this is true, what would that be? Think about Hollywood movies. And I love to look at film from this perspective. Look at the most popular, the unsuspected blockbusters that have occurred in the science fiction realm. And the one that comes to mind first certainly is The Matrix. The Matrix informing us about a world that we cannot see, that informs the world that we can see, and that we are living in both of those worlds, although we may not know that. That was the bottom line to The Matrix. I'm not suggesting all the shoot 'em up stuff and being able to dodge bullets and all of that is something that we are capable of, although in the world, in the quantum world, there's no reason why we shouldn't be. But that's what that film was telling us. Look at the movie The Avatar, or Avatar, the film Avatar. Avatar was telling us about our relationship to nature and the natural world and how important that relationship is, and showing us subtleties of how powerful that relationship is when we allow it to play a role in our lives. And you look at the films that young people are drawn to, things like Wonder Woman, Harry Potter, The Avengers. You know, they're all different from one another, but the bottom line is every one of those films and others are saying that there are powers within us, dormant powers, latent powers, untapped potential that is available to us and that we are in the process of learning to awaken those potentials, awaken those superhuman powers. So if this is true, then technology must be a part of this. If this is true, then the technology we're building in the world around us must be informing us of something in the world within us. And I've mentioned in this program and throughout my books, I found that to be true. I have yet to see any technology built in the outside world that doesn't mimic what we already do in our bodies, except our bodies do it better. Our cells do it better. We have the ability to self-regulate this soft technology to diagnose and repair and sustain this vehicle so that our consciousness can continue to grow and expand and mature in ways that simply aren't possible in artificial bodies or using artificial intelligence. So if this is true, that consciousness informs itself through its creations, all the things I'm talking to you about here must be telling us something about ourselves. What is the metaverse saying to us? What is transhumanism saying to us? And the bottom line for me is that they are all asking us, they're compelling us to come to terms with the deep truth of our existence. Who are we? And what are we really capable of? And it's only by understanding who we are and the potentials within us that we can determine whether or not we want to embrace that technology. How much of ourselves do we want to give away to the technology? We cannot answer that question until we know what we're giving away. To answer that, we have to know the new human story. And that's what this course is all about. So for me, it really comes down to love. Do we love ourselves enough to embrace the deep truth of who we are in this world, the deep truth of our story, of the new human story? Do we love ourselves enough to think in our hearts and our minds and to live in our lives the deep truth that that story is revealing? Well, we don't have to wait long to find the answer, because you and I are answering it in every choice that we make in every moment of each day of our lives. My hope is that what I've shared through this and my modules and what Bruce and Lynn are sharing in their modules helps you to become aware, number one, of this reality. Number two, gives you the information and the ways to discern, not judge, but to discern what technology and to what degree you want technology to play a role in your life. And it's different for everyone. For people that need the technology to become the best versions of themselves, that tech is there. And for people that are simply looking to that tech as recreation, it's a caution in terms of how much we invite that recreational technology into our lives. Do we want to put computer chips into our brain for fun and to make our games easier? And you now have all the information you need to be able to make choices like that. So this is going to bring a close to this module, module number 9. I want to thank you again for sharing a part of your day with me today as we've explored this module, but for taking the time to explore this concept through the entire course. And I want to thank you for all that you're doing to be the best version of yourself and to help us to create the best version of the best possible world. Thank you so much. I look forward to our next.